Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. It is no longer news that the relationship between Nigerian presidents and their deputies, or governors and their deputies, have sometimes been quite difficult. Often, efforts are made to keep their disagreements out of the public domain. But in certain instances, whatever conflicts may exist have come out in the open, giving the public a lot to talk about and leaving a lot of room for conjecture. Many will recall how the relationship between President Olusegun Obasanjo and his deputy Atiku Abubakar at the time deteriorated rapidly after the 2003 presidential election. The presidential villa in Abuja, as we said earlier, practically became a battle zone as both men and their aides went to town with a legion of accusations and counter-accusations against one another. Many will also recall the travails of former President Goodluck Jonathan as vice president to the late President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua. With the passing of his principal, President Jonathan picked the then Governor Namadi Sambo, governor of Kaduna State, as his vice president. Outwardly, Vice President Sambo and President Jonathan had a rank of free relationship, but of course, there were speculations about tension sometimes between the two of them. Given antecedents and the return of events in the presidency, Nigerians have started to wonder again if all is well between incumbent President Muhammadu Buhari and his deputy, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. Is there any reason we should be concerned about possible cracks in the presidency? Or we should take Vice President Osinbajo at his word when he says he and President Buhari are like two peas in a pod? Well, here to discuss this from our Abuja studio is Umar Sani, a former media aide to former Vice President Namadi Sambo. He will be joined later by Yinka Odumakin, the spokesman of Afenifere, the Yoruba socio-cultural organization. Welcome to the morning. Umar Sani, good morning.
Morning, Dr. Abati and the other panelists.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Leila Antuno. When you're on television, you don't remember their names.
You're welcome.
But privately, you're always talking about them.
you know, when I'm with Dr. Abati, any other name is secondary.
Anyway, you are welcome to the morning show. We would like you to comment generally on the reported rift within the presidency between the office of the president and the office of the vice president. Only yesterday we were told that 35 aides in the office of the vice president have been turned adrift. And these were persons who were recruited in August. Now, what could be responsible for this? I mean, is there two presidencies? Do we have two presidencies? Does the vice president have a cabinet of his own? What exactly is, do you think is happening within the presidency in the light of all the reports about the vice president being relegated?
Well, let me start by saying that there is no two presidency. We have only one presidency. And that is why all appointment letters are issued by the office of the secretary to the federal government. And those appointment letters are based on the approval of Mr. President. The president approves all appointments in the villa. And so there is no two-way about it. So when you hear about sack of aides of vice president, you begin to wonder whether they are really aides of the vice president, because you can't really know. Anybody who is appointed by the president and is deployed to another office. Now, if you are deployed to the office of the SGF, or you are deployed to the office of the permanent secretary, or you are deployed to the office of the vice president, or you are deployed to any other office under the presidency, the SGF, under the instruction of the president, can dismiss, sack, or terminate your appointment. So all staff in the office of the vice president may not be staff employed directly by the vice president, or it may not even be staff that are recommended by the vice president. The vice president may only know that they are being deployed to his place if they are coming to work under him, so that he can assign some responsibilities to them. Otherwise, he is not likely to, exactly know whether all those people, that were employed, where they came from who or from where. However, I do not see how the office of the vice president can have up to about 88 as being reported in the media. It is very ridiculous. However, that is not to say that it cannot happen. It can happen because it depends on the policy direction of the government and the responsibilities Mr. President assigns to the vice president. If the president has more responsibilities in certain key areas and which requires more hands, then of course more people will be employed and be sent to those areas so that they will help in the actualization of those policies. So for me, I believe that this issue of sacking of 35 staff of the vice president, as it is generating furor in the media, I have not seen the office of the vice president or any other person complaining that these people are people who were employed or brought in directly by the vice president and that they were being sacked as a result of either the vice president conflict with Mr. President, perceived conflict with Mr. President, or perhaps whether they are of no relevance in the office again. So the sack up to now has not even been officially confirmed, because from all the news we have been hearing, I just read the Punch this morning, and I discovered that even the office of the SGF is refusing to comment on the matter, claiming that they don't even know of such sack. So if the office that is responsible for such is claiming ignorance, I don't know where such stories emanated from.
So this is the thing. Facts are one thing and perception is quite another. But in politics, perception is often reality. You've really put into context those 35 aides, who they might be, and the fact that their relevance or the relevance of this story is being exaggerated. But what has been reported is that the vice president tried to delay their sack but was unable to do so. Abba Kyari went ahead anyway. So the way it's been couched is as if the vice president has little to no influence and the chief of staff is the one who is influential. And reading between the lines, there's a lot there. There's a lot of context there. What is your opinion of that and how this story is being framed?
Well, let me say that the approval of Mr. President, if truly there is an approval, that cannot be delayed by anybody. It must be implemented, according to the approval. If the vice president is the one that made such efforts to delay it, he cannot delay an approval that has been freely given by Mr. President. What he can do is that when Mr. President is back, he will now represent his case before Mr. President, who will now look at the case and see on case-by-case basis why such decisions should be rescinded. And if the President is satisfied with his deputy's postulations, then he will order for their recall. They can be recalled, but you cannot stop the approval of Mr. President from being implemented because it has already been approved and it is. But I do not know how Abba Kyari is concerned about staff engagement. He is the chief of staff, but he is not in charge of staff engagement. Staff engagement or employment or recruitment is under the office of the SGF, which is political. And if it is, of course, the normal civil service is under the head of service. So I don't see how Abba Kyari came in. Well, perhaps his influence in the villa is being put to play, that he is perhaps contesting against the vice president, but I do not see Abakari overshadowing the vice president, except the president, of course, gives him the go-ahead to do it. So if the president is convinced that those people are they are no longer relevant and they cannot serve the interests of the country any longer, he has the right to terminate their appointments and, of course, reduce costs in the day-to-day running of the villa. Having said that, I will also insist that let us allow the office, although it is a very difficult thing for the office of the vice president to counter Mr. President, having said that their relationship is fantastic, for him to now come out and be complaining. However, we should be waiting in the wings to hear from side talks, because certain people within will talk outside, that people will now start commenting. So we are very much aware that these things will come to light very, very soon, and we will know the true position of things. I agree with you that perception is also very important, but in this case, these are issues that have not been officially confirmed for people to say, okay, we can now speculate accurately. The speculation is based on the information that is available, and the information that is available it could have been an accurate information, but because of that refusal by the office of the SGF to confirm or deny that.
Go on a quick commercial break. Now, a lot of the perceptions that are going on have stemmed from quite a few things. Namely, for example, when the president was swearing in his ministers, and he did say that you should refer to the chief of staff if you have any questions for me. And a lot of people in the public felt that, hold on a second, why is he asking his ministers to report to his chief of staff? What is the relevance of his chief of staff? And then, following that, was a lot of perception that the vice president was being stripped of his duties in office. Now, of course, a lot of this does not come with the kind of proof that we want to have if we want to say there's a serious problem between the vice president and the president. But what may be the reason for the president taking such actions that are giving this perception to the public? We'll go on a very quick commercial break now, and when we're back, we'll touch on that. Thanks, sir. Welcome back. You're still watching the morning show here on Horizon News, and we now have Mr. Yinka Odumakin in the studio with us. But before that, let's head back to our Abuja studios, where Mr. Umar Sani is still with us. Thank you very much for staying with us. And before we went on a break, I had asked you a question with regards to perception and a couple issues that have occurred that have led the public to feel as though there is that rift that currently exists between the vice president and the president. When situations such as the ones described occur, what exactly could be the causes of that may not necessarily mean there's a rift between the vice president and the president?
Well, like you rightly mentioned, during the inauguration of ministers, Mr. President actually did say that on all matters they should report to the vice president. That was just, a statement which was made, publicly. But all other presidents may not have made such statements publicly. But that is the norm within the villa. Dr. Abati can attest to that. Because all aides, all staff, once a staff is employed, or is engaged, he is under the chief of staff, because the chief of staff is the head of the aides of Mr. President. So every other person will report to him, who although he is not a minister, or neither is he elected, but by the appointment of that office, he becomes the head of the aides of the vice president. And so when he becomes the head, every information that goes to the president will pass through him, through his aides, and any information coming out will pass through him to such aides. So I think there is nothing wrong in such a order, only that because other presidents have not said it, and Mr. President actually said it. Now, those areas where we will have contention are one, a special purpose vehicle which is intended to investigate, was removed from his office, and from all information we are gathering now, the Obono Obla thing, they have issues. So perhaps it was removed and then even disbanded because of those issues. One cannot really say. I'm not defending the office of the president, neither am I justifying anything. I'm only trying to look at it dispassionately and objectively. Now, having said that, I will also say that other agencies under the vice president have not been removed. I have not heard that border communities have been removed, boundary commission has been removed, national planning has been removed, or NEMA, perhaps because of the new ministry, the Ministry for the Humanitarian and National Disaster. Perhaps NEMA will now, because their mandate is similar, may now fall as a parastatal under the ministry, and so may not be reporting to the vice president. The BP, I think, is still under the vice president. So, and the National Economic Council, for which the vice president is in charge, is still there. It is statutory, it is constitutional. Even that is also an advisory body to Mr. President. The Economic Advisory Council that the Mr. President set up is also an advisory council. And this one, this is for the first time where experts are brought together with Miss Grill to come and advise Mr. President on the way forward in terms of our economy. Previously, the normal practice is for captains of industry, captains of businesses, captains of financial institutions, and CBN governor and the rest will come together and formulate, policies for the direction of the government. Now, there are some modifications and changes. So I will not clearly, say that the vice president has been sidelined or he is not being accorded his dues, but I will say that, there is no smoke without fire. When you hear people continuously complain that the office of the vice president is being maligned, is being sidelined, is being this, then when you look inwardly, it could be done, cleverly in such a manner that the public will not be able to decipher, even though the public is now very much aware that something is definitely wrong between Mr. President and Mr. Vice President, and that unless something is done urgently, the perception will continue to increase, and people's view will be that the vice president is being sidelined deliberately for reasons yet to be known by Nigerians.
Well, Umar Sani, thank you very much. We now have in the Lagos studio, as Leila pointed out earlier, Yinka Odumakin, the spokesperson of Afenifere, the Yoruba socio-cultural organization. Now, Yinka, let's bring you into this conversation, and thank you for joining us. Now, Umar Sani has been defending presidentialism and the fact that there is only one president of Nigeria. But he also admits that there are perception problems, that there is no smoke without fire, but that at the end of the day, the truth will be known. But on the basis of what is known so far, it is not proper to say that the vice president is being sidelined, because there's only one president, and everyone in that presidency is a staff of the president. And even when you say 8 have been removed, Osinbajo's cabinet has been disempowered. Osinbajo on his own does not have his own cabinet. He, in fact, is the chief assistant to the president. But Afenifere's position is different. Afenifere says he's being victimized. Is this about ethnicity or about what the presidential system is all about and how the Constitution defines roles within that presidency?
Thank you so much. I listened to my brother Umar Sani. Our position is very clear. The vice president
I hope your position is based on facts.
Yes.
Not ethnicity.
Wait now. The vice president is not a chief in the palace of a president. That means a king, you appoint chiefs, then you can depose them, they cut out every time. The vice president, yes, is subordinate to the president, but it's a constitutional office. In fact, if you're a presidential candidate, you are not duly elected until you have a vice president. And there are roles assigned to the president apart from things that are discretionary. Yes, when they started this thing, it started first of all after the removal of Lawadara. They stopped handing over to him whenever the president travels. There was a time, remember they said it was, the president was traveling, I said that the vice president will coordinate while the president was away, will be away. Instead of acting as president, he became a coordinator. Then they left that. Since that time, since after Lawan, they've not handed over power to him once. Whenever the president was traveling. Now, but after the elections, they moved to the next level. And the next level was stripping him of all these functions in his office. Yeah, we are not saying that the president cannot remove function from the president. He assigned some of the functions in the first place. But the way the vice president has been treated is beneath that office. Unless they tell us, because if we're in, like he said, we're in ignorance. If they say, and if you have done certain things, you tell the public, and then even if you want to remove him, you can remove him. But to keep him as vice president and be treating him like an errand boy in the presidency is not acceptable to us. But one thing also happened, and just should get worried about. When Timi Frank came out with those allegations against the vice presidents, those are very weighty allegations that when Nigeria was Nigeria, could bring down the government. Students have been all over the streets in the country. But to date, the president has not said a word on the allegations that the vice president collected 90 billion illegally. Not a word from the presidency. And unfortunately for the vice president himself, he said we're going to suit Timi Frank. Today we don't have any suit in court. So when they are now moving against him the way they are moving, I mean, for instance, the deep shore whatever that they took to London to sign, there was no reason for that. If the president did not sign it before he left, he was there for 17 days. What was the life and death about it for 17 days that they have to take it to London, if not for your face kind of thing? But again, we must say this very clearly. The behavior of the vice president himself, we can't put anything to it that the fact that perhaps he has become a kind of a hostage. Because you remember, under General Ibrahim Babangida, there was a man called Ibuchikiwe who resigned as chief of general staff, that he was not told as number 2 man that Nigeria was going to be taken to OIC, and he resigned. But for the vice president, look, I was in Ife about 3 weeks ago when the Oni affair.
Well, Yinka Odumakin, let's take a short break.
Yes.
When we continue, you continue with this. When we return, you continue with these interesting points you are making. We'll take a short commercial break now. You're still watching The Morning Show here on the Arise News channel. We'll be back. You're still watching The Morning Show here on the Arise News channel. And still with us in our Abuja studio is Umar Sani, former spokesperson to former Vice President Namadi's Sambo. And here in our Lagos studio, we have Yinka Odumakin, the spokesperson of Afenifere, the Yoruba socio-cultural organization. Now, Yinka, before we took that commercial break, you were commenting on the reported rift in the presidency between the president and the vice president.
Yes. I said that about 3 weeks ago, that was never fair when Onyefe made the Butuka Shinti, the Odole of Ife. The vice president was present, and it was Minister of Interior, Engineer Farabushala, who got up, brought out the president's speech, read his speech and said, I'm representing the president. Last week, there was the Tobani in Daura, where the vice president was present, and a junior minister said he was representing the president. No, there's something wrong. Look, clearly in the last 20 years, we must put it on record. I think minus Jonathan and Sambo, who never had any issue about rift openly. They may have arguments inside that we don't know.
No,
but there was nothing.
Inside.
There was nothing openly. That has been a really perfect stream of art. But what's happening now is in a class of its own. In terms of the deliberate humiliation of the office of the vice president, is a peculiar one that we're having now. But
is it worse than what happened between Obasanjo and Atiku? It's not.
I think so. I think it's worse.
Why? Because it's seemingly unprovoked?
There were issues between Obasanjo. There were issues between Obasanjo and Atiku. Atiku came out openly. You know, Atiku is a fighter. But this one has maintained his dovish disposition, and yet you keep on bombarding, assaulting him left and center. Oh, the Yemi was loyalty, that's loyal. Loyalty is through traffic. If he's loyal, I didn't loyal to him. But, like I said, what concerns us about this is the fact that this, the office of the president is a constitutional office. We have not been told by the presidency that has done anything wrong. And to be treated this way, if you can be treating the vice president this way, how will you treat other Nigerians? Well, that's an issue for us.
But I want to sort of put this issue in some kind of context. It started in July when the ministers were announced. Eyebrows were raised that the minister from Ogun State was not the vice president's candidate. It was somebody else's, right? Then in September, the announcement of that Economic Advisory Council appeared to pull the rug from beneath the vice president. And then he was publicly asked to always seek approval regarding certain contracts. His office was forced to say that they have never usurped or overstepped in that regard. Why did the vice president's office have to issue that statement hastily? The presidency is the one that should have been at pains to stress that nothing untoward had happened. There was silence from the presidency. Then in October, the Independence Day speech, where the president referred to his SIP, the programs, his special intervention programs, and said he's institutionalizing those programs with the formation of this new Ministry for Humanitarian Services and what have you, which was also perceived as the rug being pulled out from under the vice president. And now we have this 35 aides reports of them being sacked by the presidency. We also have people like you commenting on the fact that Abba Kyari flew to London with that agreement. So this is all why it's looking that way. Umar Sani earlier raised that idiom of there's no smoke without fire. Sure. But I have another one for you because I've just listened. The third time is enemy action. So who is the vice president's enemy?
Clearly, the vice president has fallen out of grace in the presidency. He's clearly an outsider today. Like I told you, when you get to a situation where the vice president will sit, I've seen a situation where even they were at a function, the vice president was there, SGF was there, and when it was time for the president's speech, the SGF brought the documents from his pocket, got up and started reading it, and was sitting down there. Clearly, the office has come under serious assault. And in fact, it goes beyond July. It started from after he moved down and this was 2017 or so. And since that time, you don't hand it over to him. I heard Garba Shehu saying on another TV a few days ago that, what the consensus is that it's only when the president away for 21 days that he has to hand over to the VP, and that the VP president goes away for 17 days. And I said, wow, how do people just try to think that we are babies? What the question says.
Sorry, so let's go back for 1 second for the benefit of our viewers. You referred to the removal of Lawan Dara twice. Yes. I'd like to explain, for us to discuss that situation so our viewers are clear. Yes. That was with regards to the DSS raid of the National Assembly.
Yes.
So
that's when the president was away in London and he was acting president and he fired him. Well, there are those who have said that he didn't seek the clearance of the president, but he sacked him and that's what, but we don't know. But as of today, the presidency has not told us the offense of the vice president. You can't be acting in impunity. We're in a constitutional democracy. This is not a military order. And like I said earlier on, if it was under military rule, that Ibituki resigned. Because
I don't want you to lose track of what you were saying about what Garuba Shehu said,
Yes.
and what the functions of the vice president should be. Because the Constitution is very clear.
Yes.
It says the vice president will be the chairman of the National Economic Council.
Yes.
Every other power that is exercised by the vice president is delegated authority.
I said it earlier on.
So when you say they took this from the vice president, they took that from the vice president, the president has the power under the Constitution to assign functions to whoever he chooses, including the vice president.
I considered that earlier on. I said that most of the functions were discretionary. But that's...
And that of the National Economic Council has not been taken from him.
Yes, but...
Which is the only one? Do you want an amendment of the Constitution? If that's what Afenifere wants, say so.
What you are saying is that I was talking about what Gabriel was saying, that, oh, it's only when the president will be away for 21 days that's mandated to hand over. I said that's not true. What the amendment that came after Jonathan and Yar'Adua Kabah was that the president, when traveling, must transmit letter to the National Assembly that I'm traveling out of the country, my VP acts. But where the president failed to transmit the letter, if it's away for 21 days, the National Assembly will empower the vice president to be acting president.
They will pass a resolution. But that first part, where is it written? Which alteration puts it? Was it not under the doctrine of national necessity that was determined?
Yes, I'm saying that
that's not law.
That session, no. That session was amended after the Yar'Adua, Kabah and Jonathan session to now say that, look, the president, when traveling out, transmit power. If he failed to do so, if he transmit power, he can be away for 4 years as the president. If they swear he president today and transmit power that I'm traveling on, vice president acts, let him be away for 4 years, no problem. But if he fails to transmit power, if I move for 121 days, he has acted in breach of the Constitution, then the National Assembly should now step in and mandate the vice president to act as president. This is a constitutional matter. You cannot say this is a discretion of the president. And this will be violated.
No, the Constitution does not say shall. But we don't have a copy of the Constitution here, so we can't speak in vacuum.
Clearly, why, if the Constitution says that, if the Constitution says that, if after 21 days is not back, National Assembly should empower the vice president. What does that mean?
Yeah, but it will be back before 21 days.
Let's bring...
So let's not jump the gun.
No.
Yeah.
I said, get that clear. That Constitution, that does not say that, oh, if I go away for 21 days,
the Constitution does not make it mandatory.
Don't wait.
Less than 21 days. No, doesn't make it mandatory.
No. The Constitution, if the Constitution doesn't make it mandatory, there's no reason for Senate to step in and make the acting president.
No, that's after 21 days.
Yes.
After 21 days.
But if he hands over, he can be away for 4 years, nothing will happen.
Okay, so let's head back over to our Abuja studios to Mr. Sani. I'd like to get your reactions to what Mr. Odumakin has expressed. I believe that's also the viewpoints on behalf of Afenifere as well. How do you see this viewpoint in light of what you've said as well?
Well, I associate myself with some of the points raised by my brother, Mr. Yinka Odumakin. He has made some valid observations, which are, of course, things that one can look at and say, yes, coming from where I said I was before, that there is no smoke without fire. Now, naturally, in the presidency, you cannot have a minister and a vice president in a function, and the minister is representing the vice president. Representing the president, while the vice president is there on his own. It's very abnormal. It is not that this is practically impossible, because the vice president can be invited in his own capacity. If the organizers of the program are not satisfied that a minister is pregnant enough to give them the leverage they want, yes. So they can invite the vice president again, because that could be an afterthought. But however, it is not tidy for a president and for a president to send a minister to represent him in a function, and the vice president is also in that function in his own capacity, and while somebody is answering a representative president. That is a way to show that something is wrong. Now, if you come to the issue of Lawal Daura, the Lawal Daura's travels, I will say, if the president wanted to reverse it, he could have reversed it, but he left it. So if the president didn't reverse it, it means it is not the president that is against the vice president's action. And I'm sure that the vice president, I'm very sure of this, that the vice president cannot relieve him without contacting Mr. President and getting his approval. So he couldn't have done it in isolation. So, except, of course, he is annoying some other people. And then, subsequently, the president can mean it and say, please, someone to represent me. It is the chief of staff that will assign the person to represent. So if the chief of staff is not in good terms with Mr. Vice President, he will not allow him to go and represent Mr. President. He will assign somebody else who will go and represent, even just to embarrass Mr. Vice President. So these are the issues that, if you look at, you will say, of course, there is no smoke without fire. But then again, so many dimensions can be read into it. You can look at it from different perspectives and different angles, and then, of course, you will not be wrong. I believe that Mr. Odumakin's assertion that the 21 days to hand over, that is not a good excuse. If the president is going out, whether for 17 days, for 15 days, whether the law says 21 days, there is a mutual understanding between the president and the vice president. And of course, automatically, the vice president becomes the acting president. I think there is a problem there. Perhaps they don't want him to act again so that he will not do certain things that will cause rift. Of course, the media has been calling the vice president the poster boy, the this, the that, giving him some accolades. And, when you are outshining your master, you have to be careful. If so, the vice president, anytime the president travels, he performs well. And people begin to applaud the government. And when the president comes back, then we will now go back to the same limbo that we are used to. So the issue is that the vice president is trying to outshine the president, and so his wings must be clipped. So these are issues that may not be tabled. They are not issues that will be outside the table, but they will be discussed in hushed tones within the villa. So I think the sins of the vice president.
Umar Sani, I think you made a brilliant point there about power politics, about the laws of power. Never outshine the master. We'll come back to that. We'll take a quick commercial break, and then the conversation will continue. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the morning show here on the Arise News channel. Still with us in our Abuja studio is Umar Sani, former spokesperson to former Vice President Namadi Sambo in Nigeria. And also here with us in our Lagos studio is Yinka Odumakin, the spokesperson of Afenifere Yoruba, the Yoruba socio-cultural organization. Now, Yinka, before we went on break, Umar Sani dropped another, redo. The way he spoke, I get the point that, look, this is even beyond the Constitution. This is beyond legalese or delegation of authority or whatever. He says, look, in his view, it looks like Vice President Yemi Osinbajo's biggest problem is that he tried to outshine the master. What do you think about this? And if, in terms of outshining the master, do you agree that this is connected to the politics of 2023 presidential election? Because some people have also said, well, Vice President Osinbajo got to that position through a particular route, and then he doesn't seem to be looking back to know what the godfathers who put him there, what exactly they want. And so because he's becoming too ambitious, everybody is calling him star boy. That no, it can't be a star boy. He must remember his background. Is this what this is all about?
Well, before I go to that, let me tell my brother Umar, we're on the same page. I faulted the argument of Garba show about 21 days that does not hold water. So myself and him were on the same page. Now as to what he has dropped about shining the boss, we have a problem here. Well, because what of if the boss is not shining? And so, but clearly I think that, well, it may be that the vice president is not full of politics. I mean, to know how to play this game. And if is shining, it's about some ambition, then we have run into problem with that. Because in terms of, I mean, for all the cares, even those who promoted you, I don't think they promoted you to go and be nursing ambition. And those you are deputizing for, they have their own agenda also. So we may have run into problems with that area. But those are conjectures. What I just seen, and for us, is that all we're insisting is that 2023 is a special issue. What's going on now is that the man is a vice president, and the public is not oblivious of the fact that the vice president of Nigeria today is not the vice president we had 6 months ago. Something's wrong. And like my brother said, no smoke without fire. And we are saying that we're in a constitutional order. We're not a military rule, or we are in a kingdom where everything is by whims and caprices. And we're not saying, and nobody here is holding any brief for Shiba that could not have done anything wrong. All we are saying is that you have done something wrong. Let the public know. And then there are constitutional ways to deal with any infractions of his office. But cannot be doing it the way they are going about it. In fact, there's no respect for the public. Because we are citizens of this country, we deserve to know what is wrong. If you cannot tell us what is wrong, then let treat the man the way he should be treated. If he has done something things are wrong, let us know, and then there are ways to deal with it.
Absolutely.
That's our issue.
There's no room for shadow boxing in this situation. But you referred to the doctrine of necessity, and that leads me to my next question, which is about precedent. At the time when President Umar Sani had his long sojourn in Saudi Arabia, the then Attorney General, Aondaka, said the president can rule from anywhere. This is what has been quoted now. We saw how that situation ended up. So it's alarming. It's causing some concern that that same line is being cited today. It should not be. What are your thoughts on the optics of the president signing this amendment bill in London, and what does that really mean for our democracy?
In fact, you see, in the days when he had Fayoshe, remember he went to Transcorp one time to say that where they said something happened in London, and we said, look at these flowers. This is a Transcorp, this kind of thing. So you can't even know what the game that's going on. But that optics is not good for us. And for us, it's a kind of in your face. Yes, we are doing this. Is all about the fact that the dangerous power play that's going on in the presidency in terms of trying to put the office of the president down. And unfortunately, we believe that what is going on is not healthy for our democracy. There's a book by this lady, essay, a Turkish journalist, How to Lose a Country. 7 steps from democracy to dictatorship. And some of the steps she listed included the fact that a strong man must create his own citizens. And these are people who must lord every action taken by the leader. And that's why you hear people who are saying that the president can rule for anywhere. And why don't we elect a diaspora president who can stay in America and London and be governing us? If you can rule from anywhere. That doesn't make sense to some of us. But, like I said, our position is very clear on this matter. If the vice president has committed infractions that are constitutional, the president should tell Nigerians. And there are ways of dealing with it. But if they are not ready to say that this is what he has done, you cannot be doing what you are doing and think that we should keep quiet. No. And let nobody take this as, this is not defense for Osinbajo. Because even for us, in the Yoruba establishment where it comes from, it's not as we don't have our issues, but we're standing on the side of constitutionalism.
Okay. And I'd like to head back to Abuja once again to Mr. Umar Sani. I'd like to ask you what you think about a point that Mr. Odumakin raised a bit earlier, saying that he believes this current situation between, or this situation that is being said to be between the vice president and the president is worse than that occurred between Obasanjo and Atiku. Do you believe that this is also the case? And if so, why or why not may this be?
No, certainly this one cannot be worse than that of, at least they are now communicating, and Mr. Osinbajo is representing the president in some places. He was in Lokoja for a rally. He attends functions. He was at Base University. He was doing most of his functions. So, if you remember, even at a council meeting, Obasanjo had to walk Atiku out, in a council meeting. So I think the difference, and he sacking his aides at that time, in fact, every of his aides was sacked. None of his aides was in the, if you see any aide in the villa, it is, but now that not everybody, the deputy chief of staff is still there. There are a lot of people who are still there, so it's not that, it's not a worst case scenario, but at least we are now gradually building towards that end. Now, for Mr. Odumakin has also raised a very, very fundamental issue, of ruling from everywhere. Now, for a government that prides itself as somebody that came to make some changes, came to, that is priding itself as being very frugal, and they were even taking Lipton, and 20 naira peak milk, displaying, frugality in public. For them to now say that the president can rule from anywhere, so that every file, a presidential jet will now have to fly to London and return because of the president's signature. And what is so urgent about the deep offshore bill? And why will it even be made public? Why, if the president will even have to sign something, why must it be placed on the doorstep of Nigerians, so that Nigerians will now understand several things? That will now say, okay, Osinbajo has been sidelined. Secondly, Abba Kyari is celebrating victory. And then his coming back also came with more issues, because he came with an approval to sack 35 of the VPs. So all these things tend to compound the matter and to make the government, lose focus on its original plan of action. The government is supposed to save costs. In saving costs, if you sack 35 staff of the vice president, for instance, and then you are taking the presidential jet to London, the traffic of presidential jet to London and coming back can pay the 1 year salary of these 35 people. So
we'll have to lower the curtain on this segment within 2 minutes. But there's a question I would like to ask you. What's your take on the Supreme Court ruling in the Atiku case over the presidential election petition? What's the mood within the party? I know that the chairman of the party says they've handed the matter over to God. Atiku himself says it has reached a conclusion. Some other persons are saying they would go back to the Supreme Court and ask the Supreme Court to reverse itself. What is the PDP planning to do since that judgment was delivered?
Well, the number one person in the party has already said we look up to God for solution. Well, God is in infinite mercy, will provide solution. However, in terms of the judgment, I find that the judgment itself has been premeditated. It is not a judgment that has taken a rigorous style, of the Supreme Court of previous times. And more so, I'm not saying that the Supreme Court cannot say, okay, we are suspending, this is our position, but judgment will be delivered. No, but at least they should be more tactical in doing this. On that first day, they should have just have had the issues and then, adjourn to about 2 or 3 days and then come and pass judgment. That will, even by that tactics and perception, Nigerians will say, okay, yes, the Supreme Court really examined this thing properly before, but it appears that they only look at the records and said, okay, well.
Thank you, Umar Sani, but in less than 20 seconds, Yinka Odumakin, what do you think of that judgment?
Well, the Supreme Court used to drive a car to go and deliver judgment. This time they drove an aeroplane, and that's why it's the difference.
Well, thank you very much, Umar Sani, and thank you very much, Yinka Odumakin, sitting with us here in Lagos. You guys have done very well. We've had an interesting conversation.